Some people are worried that AI is taking over the world. Well, that sounds a bit far-fetched, but can we at least get AI to analyze our Evony battle reports? Well, the answer is yes, if AI stands for actual intelligence, with some help from artificial intelligence. Today, I'm going to introduce to you a new tool that I didn't develop myself. I expanded it. The original work was done by Scottingham from server 469. You see his information here. I came across this in John Wick's video about a month ago, where he introduced that tool, and I got very excited about it. So I contacted Scottingham and I got his version of this, and I worked on it and expanded so we can be able to analyze battle reports with many reinforcers, many joiners in rallies, and taking the perspective of different players. And as you can imagine, for a big battle report, data entry, putting the information of the battle report into a tool, into a spreadsheet, can be a pain, right? Even for a small battle, it could be very time consuming to do that. So John Wick was suggesting maybe someone can develop an AI tool to do that for us. I'm going to show you how I managed to get some help from AI. So I didn't really develop a tool, but I'm using the existing chatbots, basically ChatGPT, to do that work for me, and it does work pretty well. I'm going to first tell you about the tool, what it does. I'm not going to go into too much details, just show you what information you need to enter and what it shows you. And then I'm going to show you the AI system that I have used for analyzing. You can see here, this is the dashboard for an example battle report, but the basic tool looks like this. The empty one before you put any data, similar to the other tool that I developed for account management. I've tried to use color coding here again. So basically green backgrounds show input. So you can see we have 3 sheets that need information that you need to put. And when you enter this information, this yellow one, the dashboard, is going to give you the main outputs that you're probably interested in. The other ones, I have some blue sheets that are for the defending side, and some this colored sheets that are for the attackers, but you don't really need to worry about those. Those are for background calculations. So you basically have to enter defender information, attacker information, and buff and debuff. For each of the sides, defender and attacker, you first need to specify how many reinforcers were there, right? There's a main defense, and then there are the reinforcers. You can put up to 15. I think that's like the biggest battle report someone might try to analyze with this. Won't have more than 15, so that's the limit I chose. So if you put 10, you will get these 10 more boxes here for adding information. So then for each of those players involved in that battle, the same here for attacker. For the rally joiners, you can also add, there were like 4 rally joiners, so 5 players in total in attack. Then you have to enter the information from the battle reports. So here you have the troop information. So for each tier, for each type, you have to tell it how many troops were survived after the battle, then how many were the losses, basically wounded or killed. If you're looking at a battlefield report, which we generally use battlefields for, testing, so that should be easy because all the losses go directly to the hospital, so it's always a single number as wounded. But if it's like SVS or just PvP, you will have a combination of other things as well, right? The killed, those who go, the souls that go to the Holy Palace and all that. And then here you will have to specify each of those tier types, how many troops of the enemy they killed. A similar thing for the traps. So traps don't get wounded, they always just get killed. So it's the same though. It's like for 9 levels, the 4 types of traps that the defense keep has. So if it's a keep defense, you will have this. So how many survived, how many were killed, and how much damage did they make, how many of the enemy troops did they kill. The same goes here for the attack. So if you look at this example report, you can see when you go to the troop details. So this is the number survived for T14 mounted here. This is the number of wounded, and this is the number of killings. Those are the values you need to enter. So this is like the main defender, which was me, and then we have the reinforcers as well. And similarly, you have to enter the information for buffs. These 4 columns are the main ones you need. It's the same format that the battle reports show you. So you have the troop types and attack, defense, and HP for each of them. So for the defender and then the attacker, these are the buffs, and then you get the debuffs. So again, if we look at a battle report, you go to troop buffs. These are those numbers that you need to enter. These are the buffs, and these are the buffs in the same order. You may notice you also have a flat buffs section here. This doesn't have a huge impact, but if you can enter that, it's better. Usually if you are the defender, you know your own flat buffs, or roughly you can put the numbers here, and then maybe you can make an assumption on the attacker depending on their level. Just say like 20% higher than yours, something like that. This only comes into play in one part of the output, so it's not a huge deal. So now let's look at the output of that example report that I showed you. So this is the information that you get. The first section up here is basically a high-level evaluation of the report. Who basically won, right? Because battle won and lost doesn't really mean anything unless you take into account the point differences. So this is the power loss. This is a good way for you to check if you have entered the correct data, because you can easily see these numbers in the report as well. How much power did the defense side lose? How much power did the attack side lose? And here it highlights for you the winner basically, and what was the net power difference that they won. And this is an estimated battlefield point. So this says, okay, the defense in this report won 1,288 battlefield points, and the attacker won this many. So the point difference was in favor of the defender with this difference. Something to note here is that this is an estimate, and the way that it is done is looking at the basic profile of the attacker troops, how many of each layer were in the ones that got wounded. The reason is that, as you notice in the reports, you don't really see who you killed, right? We know that these troops killed 2.6 million troops. We don't know if they killed T1s or T10s or T15s. But that's the best that we can do. So we assume that all tiers killed the same share of different levels that were in the wounded of the other side. But this should be accurate enough. Then here you can get an overview, okay, of what the basically battle looked like. What was the defense side? What was the attack side troops? And here you can see it graphically. And again, color coding here helps. Ground is generally throughout shown with blue, and range is green, mounted is yellowish, and siege is gray. So here one issue is if you look at most defending keeps, they have a lot of T1s, right? So if you include that, you see here, it's heavily mounted defense. Doesn't tell us much because, well, I have a T1 mounted wall. So here I allow you to change this. What tiers are included as low, mid-range, and high. So I can say, okay, let's count from T3 to T8 as low, and then 8 to 12 as mid, and 9 to 11 as mid, and then 12 to 16 as high. So if I do that here, you can see that, okay, 40%, about like half of the troops were mounted, and then there was siege. And you can see the attacker, it was a siege rally. You can quickly see that the main attacker had a lot of high tier siege, and the reinforcers had mid tier siege mostly. So one point here is that the cells are protected for formulas, so you don't accidentally mess up the formulas. The ones that are like this, the font is in blue, means that you can edit them. The other ones you cannot. So here you get an overview of the buffs. So this is looking at the net buffs. What was the attacker buffs minus what was the defender's debuffs for the troop type. Then here it shows you percentage wise. You know, you can debuff a maximum of 50% of the enemy's buffs. So if it goes up to 50%, it's a good job in terms of debuffing. And this gives you a summary of that. This first column says, did the defender maximize the debuff for this type? If it says no, it means if you are the defender looking at this, there is room for you to improve in debuff for that type. As you can see, for me here as the defender, the only thing that I maximized debuff was the ground defense, the ground HP, which doesn't really mean much because it was a siege rally. And my siege rally debuffs were really bad. I already know, but it's good to see how bad it is, right? Okay, then you get a sides performance. Here, the idea is to see the contribution of different players involved. This is particularly helpful when you have different types in the rally. For example, here I have my reinforcements. They were mostly ranged. There's basically two ranged and one ground march was reinforcing. Like in some cases, you want to say, okay, what do different types of reinforcements do, right, against like a siege rally, against a ground rally? So here first you see how many of the kills was done by each player, what percentage. This shows you a share of those. The main attacker then reinforces one up to as many as you added. And then here it shows you what was the power contribution, right? Because sometimes you have someone joining, everything is like they have lost all the high tier troops. It's mostly low tiers. It's not really adding a big power to the rally or defense. This gives you an overview of that. So here you can see the main attacker had it was a big keep with a big margin. As we saw, it was high tier troops, so it had the biggest power in that rally. Then if you divide these numbers, it kind of gives you the effectiveness, right? So if the player brought a lot of power but didn't kill that many, it wasn't really effective. But if it was the opposite, it was really effective. So for example, here you can see reinforcer number 3 killed only 5%, but it was taking up 22% basically of that rally's power. So it wasn't really effective. Coming here, you can see it as a low value here, but the attacker actually did a lot of killing. It was 66% of the kills, but only 45% of the power. So this gives you an idea of who was doing the most. Then you can see what troop type was doing the most killing. Of course, for the attacker in this example, because it's all siege, siege killed everything. The others were just layers. It doesn't really show up here. And then for the defender, overall, it was actually the mounted that killed, regardless of the reinforcers. It was mostly actually that T1 cab wall that was doing the killing. Now here you can look at things in more detail. So it's a breakdown, and here it allows you to choose the different players. You can choose which side you want to look at. Is it the defenders or the attackers? For each of them, you have the option to look at each player individually. So the defender, if this is the main defender, the keep, or whoever you had as the main defender. Then the different reinforcers, you can look at their stats individually, or you can look at all of the reinforcers if you just want to compare the keep performance versus the reinforcer performance. And then you can actually look at everyone's data together. And here you'll have the breakdown on each of these basically stats. For them, we have the first column as the total, so putting everything together for different troop types, what things look like, and then here for each troop type, we have a tier by tier breakdown. So you can see higher tiers did the most, or it was the lower tiers. What do we have here? The first one is HP lost. So here basically blue lines show the HP remaining after the battle. Basically the ones that survived, how much of the HP, how much HP did they have, health points, and how much of them were dead, right? You can see now in this one, in the defense, Siege lost all of the HP, I lost all of my Siege, and this is how much it was. You can compare the axis values here is up to 60,000 here. And then for range, for example, it goes much higher. And I lost like T14 range, but not much of the rest. So this gives you an overview of that. Here is where those flat buffs come into play. Calculating that HP is based on your buffs and the flat buffs and the percentage buffs. Then similar to above, you see the killings by troop type, and for each type you see the breakdown into different tiers, right? So the Siege did a lot of killing, and actually T13s were the ones that killed a lot in this case. And in range, you see actually T11s killed more. But again, remember that the axis ranges are not the same, so these are much lower than what the Siege did here. So this gives you an overview that you can see actually the calves here killed a lot, and it was actually the T1 calves that were killing. And you have an RSS effectiveness here. The idea is now dividing these number of kills that we had by how much resources you need to train that tier, right? So giving you an idea of how much basically investment went into those killings that came out of that battle. And now we look at the points. So it's based on the number of kills and those estimated battlefield points. Now for each tier, each type, you can look at that. So Siege, as you can see, killed a lot. The green side is the points won, and the red ones are the points lost. So I lost a lot of points because of my Siege that were dead. And they contributed a little bit to the points that I won, but mounted actually contributed a lot without getting, any wounded. And you can see here for the calves, everything is in green, and it's all T1s did a lot for me. Then it's a similar idea here, RSS effectiveness, now dividing by billions of RSS needed for each. What was the net points for that? And here you can have red values, which means it was a point loss. And the bigger it becomes means that it was a higher net point loss per unit of resources that went into that. And then you have a similar thing down here for trap performance. Traps, how many traps of which type did the defense keep have? How many kills did it get? Each type, how many of it was killed? How many killing it did? So again, the red ones are the numbers that got killed, and then the green ones are the killings they did, and it's again the RSS that went into them. So these are the main things that you get out of it. So now again, entering these values sounds like a lot of work, right? I think for this specific battle, there was about 1,000 cells with non-zero values that one has to enter in the Excel sheet, and that can take hours, right? So here comes AI to our rescue. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I've used ChatGPT mostly because that's what I have a subscription for. And the reason I needed the subscription is that I wanted to upload screenshots of the battle report. We don't get that information in any other form, at least I don't know how to get that, like an API of the game or something. But it's, in images, you can take screenshots of the report and ask AI to help you to convert those numbers into tables and easily put them in the Excel file. I did some experiments, if you may, and my conclusion so far is that if you can use the project option is the best, because if you do everything in a single chat, it becomes heavy and then it starts hallucinating and getting the information wrong. Basically, some numbers from earlier reports can spill over to your new ones. So what I do is that I have created a project. I don't know if the other AI chatbots have that option, but I have a project, and under this, I have different chats for different reports that I want to analyze. Then it start off like this. You can see I did some exploration first, and then came up to some conclusions. So I have a general instructions here for it, asking it to do exactly what we need. I will provide this in the description of the video, what the instructions are. If you don't want to use the project format, what I suggest you do is to basically copy and paste this in the beginning of every chat. So you have one new chat for a new battle, and you want to give it the screenshots. So this is what I have, and I have provided it with some examples. So I have some screenshot examples of battlefield reports for troops, for traps, for the buffs, debuffs, and then I have provided it with with some example outputs that I want. These are also described for ChatGPT in terms of I want a table output that looks like this. So, but just to make sure it doesn't get things wrong, I have provided these example files to it as well. And what I do is that in each chat, let's go to this one, for example. I provided with screenshots. So a limitation is that you only can add 10 pictures in one message. And in my experience, if you do one player's information in more than one message and ask it to like update this table now with the additional data, it tends to get things wrong. So I have tried to minimize the number of screenshots that I need per player. So this is what I use for taking screenshots. I mean, there are many software that can help you with that, but I found this ShareX. It has worked quite well because you can define, hotkeys to get a pre-configured region screenshot. So what I do is just Control Alt A, and just I scroll up the battle report and take screenshots for the region that I want. And the ones that I upload at the end look like this. See, this is so for each screenshot, the way that at least in the PC version, the battle reports look like, you can get a maximum basically of 4 troop types with all numbers showing. But then this is an example of a raw screenshot because this was for traps. So here what it can also help you do is that, so the good thing is that it does it quickly. There is a tool of image combiner. So I take those screenshots and I put them all together and I put usually 3 to 4 of them. So basically 10 or 15 troop tiers in one image, because that allows me to upload around like 4 or 5 images per player, and that tends to work well enough. So what I have is like screenshots like this, that the region that I have specified is from here. So I take these 4 first troop tiers and then I scroll up. This one first, the one that was last comes first, and then I just take a screenshot again. So this helps me at least to do this more quickly than, the snipping tool of Windows or, the usual short keys. And I can more quickly put those pictures together. I tried making one long picture. It didn't work so well. It wasn't able to capture the data from that. So here you can see I had the long image test. It wasn't really responding well to it. So I could put together all the report in one for one player, but it basically just starts imagining things. It was feeling everything from T16 that wasn't right. This is the example that of the output that I get from it. So I ask it to put everything in one Excel file with 3 different sheets. So for each player, I get this. So there is this table that I can easily just copy and paste into the main Excel file. This is for the survived, and this is for the losses, and this is for the killings. So it has generally worked well for me, but it took it some time. I think it was some learning from both sides. Some of the common issues I had with it was, so especially when you have layered tiers, usually the numbers are exactly the same, right? You have a percentage of killed to wounded ratio and all of those, or killed to survived. Then you have layers of 1000, then you have like 700 wounded per layer. It's exactly the same. So at some point, it sees that pattern and it starts imagining things. So like the lower tiers here, these were different. So you could see still like these 40s getting repeated. It is just assuming that it does. Or I had issues that it started everything at T16. It has sometimes problem reading these because with the background pictures and this weird shadow that the text has, it can get confused. So I actually tried some other simple tools that they, convert images to text, and they cannot really read this well. I think maybe the less basic ones can do it, but I don't know of any. But this has been working well for me. I actually, the last report that I did, I had 7 players, actually 7 plus 1 with only two layers. So 7 full players on both sides in total, and it took me about 35 minutes to take all the screenshots, give them to ChatGPT, copy and paste them into the tool, and have the final analysis ready for that. So it's about 5 minutes per player involved, which I think is fine if you compare that to what you would need to do manually. So I hope this helps you. This tool, I really personally like it. I have done some analysis. I might upload a new video looking at different reports in a bit of more detail that might have some, learnings. That's at least for myself. But this is it for now, and I hope you enjoyed this and use the tool. And if you have any comments about the tool, any suggestions to improve it, I'm open and we are open. I can communicate those with Scottingham, and maybe we can come up with something else as well. But until then, thank you and bye.